But don't worry, it's
Could you discuss the history of aquaculture courses at the University of St Andrews?
To understand the history of the aquaculture courses at the University of St Andrews, you need to know a little bit about the background, particularly to marine biology at St Andrews University. There's been a marine laboratory called the Gatty Marine Laboratory in St Andrews since 1896. So St Andrews has been the home to one of the oldest and best known marine biology labs in Europe. Now, that lab has evolved into what we call the Scottish Oceans Institute today, which is a major research centre that consists of over 200 staff and students. Within that group, there's a group of people who are interested in aquaculture. So actually, the Sustainable Aquaculture courses are a relatively new course at St Andrews. We've taught marine biology in St Andrews since, I think it's the 1960s. And the Sustainable Aquaculture courses came from the university looking to expand its taught postgraduate programmes. And with the long history of marine biology in St Andrews and the aquaculture group within St Andrews, this was an obvious way of extending our existing portfolio of postgraduate taught courses.
Could you explain the collaboration between the fish site, 5M and St Andrews, how it came about and the success of the partnership?
Like most successful partnerships, the one between the University of St Andrews and 5M Publishing results really from both parties having complementary interests in a particular project. Now, we've just been talking about the long history of marine biology in St Andrews, the fact that St Andrews was looking to extend its postgraduate taught courses and had a core group of aquaculture researchers who would contribute to that course. So St Andrews brought that long tradition of research and teaching in marine biology and aquaculture into the project. 5M Publishing is basically a leader in lead in the provision of...
I'd start from it. If you go back to 5M Publishing, we can splice it.
Right. Okay. 5M Publishing is a leader in the provision of information.
It's easy done.
It's easier when you're talking about your own stuff, when you start talking about somebody else's. Right, let me think. What am I trying to say? 5M is a leader in...
Dissemination of fish-based information or aquaculture information.
Yeah.
Aquaculture news.
Right, what I'm trying to say is 5M Publishing owns the fishsite.com, which is a leading online
portal
for delivering information to the aquaculture industry.
Yes.
That's
right.
No. Okay, we'll try again. 5M Publishing is a leading... It's like learning your lines in a play.
Yeah.
Right. What am I trying to say? It's a leading... You had a great set of words there. Leading provider. It's the owner.
You said 5M Publishing is the owner of the fish site, who is a leading
provider of information to the online information.
Online news and aquaculture information, yeah.
Let's see if we can get through this bit and get on with the rest of it. Okay, 5M Publishing owns the fishsite.com and is a leading provider of news and information online to the aquaculture industry. And 5M have also developed a series of online distance learning platforms which enable this course to be delivered part-time and in an online format. In addition, 5M are part of the Benchmark Group, and another company within Benchmark is the Fish Vet Group, which is a major supplier of veterinary services to the aquaculture industry worldwide, but is based in Inverness in Scotland. And actually, members of the aquaculture group in St Andrews were already working with staff at Fish Vet Group prior to the courses being set up. So it was relatively easy for the University of St Andrews, through its links with Fish Vet Group and 5M Publishing, to cooperate in this programme of developing online distance learning courses.
Please tell us about the benefits of e-learning.
E-learning is really a different way in which students can learn. Basically, students can learn when they want, where they want, at any particular time, which is convenient to them, as long as they've got access to a computer or their laptop. So what this means is, rather than attending university full-time, students can study in a part-time format. What that means is that they can essentially keep the day job going. They don't need to leave their existing employment. They can meet their family commitments, their work commitments, and study at a time which is suitable for them. Now, distance learning is also designed around individual learners. It's a different way of learning, but many students find this is preferable to the more traditional ways of learning for full-time students, in terms of things like attending lectures and seminars. And certainly students can learn at their own pace, the pace which is suitable for them and their particular circumstances. It's also very cost-effective. We estimate in St Andrews that the cost of doing an online distance learning course such as an MSc is less than half of the total cost of the fees that a student has to pay, alongside the accommodation costs of a full-time student, alongside living costs, alongside maybe visa costs for a foreign student, or things like childcare costs if a student has a family. It's also a cost-effective way for their employers to provide training, because essentially the employers can help their students perhaps with the financial costs of that training, but they get trained at a time which is suitable for the employer, and of course the employer doesn't lose that member of staff. If they had to go to university as a full-time student, they would lose that member of staff for at least 1 year.
Just going to adjust the camera slightly.
Could you briefly explain the levels of courses that are available?
The different levels of courses that are available at the University of St Andrews range from what we would call a basic course, an undergraduate certificate course, which is at undergraduate level, right the way through to an MSc in sustainable aquaculture, which is the highest level of taught course available in the higher education system. So the undergraduate certificate course is really an introduction to aquaculture for those who've never had the opportunity to study aquaculture in the past, perhaps those looking to convert to a career in aquaculture, or perhaps for students who have been working in the aquaculture industry for a long period of time but have no formal qualifications. It allows them to study and to get a formal qualification in sustainable aquaculture. Critically, the undergraduate certificate course for a student like that who's working within the aquaculture industry, if a student successfully completes the undergraduate certificate course, together with their professional experience that they've had from their job, that would allow them to enter one of our higher level postgraduate courses. So our postgraduate courses consist of postgraduate certificate courses, postgraduate diploma courses, and the full MSc course. The postgraduate certificate courses, what we call a 60 credit course, and these courses are based around either sustainable aquaculture in vertebrate species, primarily fish species, or sustainable aquaculture in invertebrate species, and that's primarily shrimp, and to a lesser extent mollusks. So this allows students to have a shorter, very focused course on a specific area of aquaculture. Now, the postgraduate diploma is 120 credits in the university system, and that 120 credits essentially is joining the two 60 credit courses together to produce 120 credits, and that covers all aspects of the sustainable aquaculture, including both vertebrate and invertebrate species. Now, to qualify with an MSc, a student has to complete those 120 credits of taught courses, and in addition do a research dissertation, which adds a further 60 credits to make up the full 180 credit MSc. So there's a number of different starting points and exiting points for students, depending on what their particular interest is, and depending on how wide they wish their studies to be within aquaculture.
How is sustainable aquaculture important to the future of society?
Well, sustainable aquaculture is really important in terms of the future of society. I think we've just passed the human population exceeding 7 billion people on Earth, and by the second half of this century, I think the human population is projected to rise to something over 9 billion. Now, if we are going to be able to feed all of those people, then we have to think of different ways in which we supply our food. If we look at existing agriculture, terrestrial land-based aquaculture, and just do a calculation as to whether those particular sectors of the industry could expand to produce that food, and I'm particularly thinking here about the supply of protein, then there is simply not enough land available on Earth to expand some parts of the traditional terrestrial agriculture in order to produce that extra protein that's going to be needed in the next 30 or 40 years. So where's that protein going to come from? If it's not going to come from terrestrial agriculture, the only other environment we can look at is the marine environment. So essentially the oceans on Earth. Now I think everybody's probably available that the wild fish, the catch of food from wild fisheries has peaked and is actually in decline now. There's a number of reasons for that, and it's a complex issue. But essentially, man has overfished the existing fish supplies. There's additional problems of climate change, pollution, all sorts of things which are affecting the supply of wild fisheries, and that's now in decline. So aquaculture is going to step in to make up the difference between that declining wild fisheries in terms of food supply and the demand for protein that there's going to be from the increase in population on Earth. And aquaculture is actually the fastest growing sector of the food supply business. It's growing at something year on year, something like 8% per year. So it's a rapidly developing, highly dynamic part of the of food production. And essentially it's going to be the process by which we can supply protein to this ever-increasing human population over the next 40 or 50 years. It's also possible to generate aquaculture in very sustainable ways. So ran out of
Have a drink.
ran out of spit there. Okay, try again. It's also possible to generate. No, it's not generating anything at all. It's also possible to develop aquaculture in sustainable ways. And that's really what the essence of our courses is about teaching students the best practice and the ways in which aquaculture can be developed in a sustainable fashion. It's not only producing a secure source of food, it's also producing secure sources of employment and jobs. The fastest growing areas of aquaculture are in some of the developing countries, some of the poorest regions of the world. And the development of aquaculture, say, not only produces a stable and expanding food supply in those areas, but provides employment opportunities and economic stability in populations where there really are few other options and choices in terms of employment.
What bursaries are available for prospective students?
At the minute, the university, sorry, that one again as well. Okay, at the moment we have one bursary scheme which is funded by the Scottish Funding Council, which is available to Scottish and EU students. And that's for students who wish to study the full MSc course in sustainable aquaculture. Now, both 5M Publishing and the University of St Andrews are currently trying to develop bursary schemes to provide financial support for students, particularly for students who are coming from developing areas where incomes are rather less than in the developed Western countries. So we hope to be able to develop bursary schemes in the future, and these schemes would actually be announced via the website of the course and through the fishsite.com.
That's good.
Very good.
Is that all right?
It was excellent.
There's some